let Dr. Nese share his screen.
Thank you, Salix. I hope everyone can hear me. Please give me a sign or a signal if the volume. Salix, you're going to have to allow me to screen share.
Sorry, I forget that it changes to even when I restart the meeting. There you go. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, this is always fun for me to do. I always like to begin by acknowledging that Ken Reeves was a graduate of this department, a friend of mine. We graduated together in 1983. Ken died tragically in an accident in 2012, and we decided to name this weather briefing series after him. He was a real proponent of collaboration among the different legs of the weather enterprise here in State College, and a real proponent of these briefings. And so I just want to give a shout out there to Ken, who these briefings are done in memory of. I'm just going to be sort of traditional today, say a little bit about Climo, a little bit about the tropics, talk about the forecast for Pennsylvania, and then offer just some thoughts about the coming winter. So I'm assuming here that you are viewing my PowerPoint slides. I think you always have to kind of start these briefings out with a little bit of climatology. October can be a very dry month in Pennsylvania. I showed this on Weather World last Wednesday. When you ask the simple question, what has been the driest month on record at a variety of places across Pennsylvania? The answer almost always comes back, it was in October. In fact, in Pittsburgh, the 4 driest months on record have all been Octobers. In State College in Philadelphia and Scranton and Harrisburg, the 2 driest months on record have been Octobers. So it's not unusual for October to be dry. Of course, we're coming out of a very dry September as well. If not for the deluge we got late last week, it would have been an extraordinarily dry September. And the period coming up, one of the reasons I show you this is because unless we get, I'll use the word lucky, and get some precipitation from whatever's left of Delta when it gets here, the next 7 to 10 days look pretty dry as well. So here's Climo. State College right now, on the high side, 65, the low side, 46. I always like to look at sunrises and sunsets because particularly this time of the year, you can really tell these numbers are changing. We're losing about 18 minutes of daylight per week. And I just thought it would be fun to note where the sun is rising and setting. Currently, today the sun rose 6 degrees south of due east and will set 6 degrees south of due west. And that's changing at the rate of about 3 degrees per week. So if you pay attention to where the sun comes up and where the sun sets, if you pick a particular location to do the viewing from, you can really notice this time of year how the location is changing. And it is south of due east and south of due west. And will continue farther south at the rate of about 3 degrees per week. This is the time of year when that's changing the fastest. So that kind of sets the stage for what would be considered normal this time of year. Let's switch on over to a browser. Not that one, but how about this one? So unless somebody tells me otherwise, you're now looking at my browser. It's always kind of fun for me to start by just looking at the national picture of National Weather Service advisories, watches, warnings, special weather statements, etc. It's very quiet right now. I guess there's some fog in Ohio. kind of near the center of an area of high pressure, light winds this morning, a little bit of low-level moisture. Some red flag warnings on the high plains in the central Rockies, and you're beginning to see advisories in the Gulf from the tropical systems. But other than that, it's really pretty quiet nationwide. Visible satellite loop this morning shows a front stretching from northern Florida just off the Carolina coast, attached to an area of low pressure well offshore. In its wake, a little bit of northwest flow. There's also a trailing upper air disturbance, a little vortmax going through this morning, helping to add to the clouds. But really, these are not precipitating clouds. There's the fog in Ohio. If you look in the northern plains, you can see the next mid-latitude front just now coming into the Dakotas. Other than that, it's pretty quiet weather-wise in the lower 48. Here's the radar. And you can sort of see some of the false echoes from earlier this morning due most likely to super refraction due to some low-level inversion, or some of this is probably birds and insects, bats coming out of their caves. You see that a lot in Texas, actually. Wouldn't surprise me if in the vicinity of San Antonio, some of that is bats emerging from their caves. But the only part of this that's real in terms of hydrometeors, northern Florida, portions of northern New England, some of what you see in the Dakotas and eastern Montana. Other than that, these are false echoes. Never hurts to look at the National Weather Service sequence of maps. This is valid at 18Z this afternoon. We talked about a new front moving into the northern plains, high pressure dominating the Ohio Valley, tail end of a front through Florida. Not a lot going on. And as long as this map is up, we might as well just look forward in time. 0Z this evening, 6Z tonight, 12Z tomorrow morning. High pressure will be in control here tonight. Except for I think the moon is still fairly close to being full, which makes it hard to stargaze, of course, but skies should be mainly clear here tonight. And that approaching front actually weakens as it gets near here, and really the next front of any note will come through here later Wednesday. And so Wednesday will kind of warm up ahead of this cold front. Thursday will cool down behind it. That's sort of the general sequence of events the next couple days. Here's the beautiful, I guess, WSI, the graphics company, calls these wind particles. Perhaps there's a different name for these, but I've adopted the name wind particles for now. And if we kind of zoom into the Ohio Valley, the blue colors indicate very light winds over Ohio. You can kind of see the center of the high this morning, kind of along the Indiana-Illinois border. You can envision a clockwise sense of circulation around that high. So we're still in a bit of a northwest flow here at the surface. You can see the convergence or confluence associated with that next boundary in the northern plains shows up very nicely here. Southerly winds ahead of it, northwesterly winds behind it. And we'll be into some of this southerly flow on Tuesday night and Wednesday, so it won't get quite as cold or chilly Tuesday night as it will tonight. And Wednesday we should be of order 5 to 8 degrees warmer than we will be tomorrow, because we'll be in this part of the flow. And then Thursday we'll be behind that front and we'll be in this part of the flow, and we'll get knocked back down to the low 60s. Kind of looking ahead a little bit with the Weather Prediction Center. Let's just jump into their 7-day precipitation forecast. which really you can see Pennsylvania is kind of in between what will be moisture associated with the remnants of tropical systems and the main storm track, which is to our north, and we are sandwiched in between. And as a result, if you buy this, and I think there's ample evidence to suggest that at least the general pattern here will hold, most of Pennsylvania gets less than 1/10 of an inch of liquid over the next 7 days, which, given where we are drought-wise, drought monitor is always cool to look at. If we go back, I hope you can see the slider here. If we go back to the beginning of September, right there, at that time, portions of central Pennsylvania were in moderate drought, D1, and then fast forward to last Thursday, where the moderate drought has expanded to include much of north central Pennsylvania, and now there's even some severe drought. Most of center, all of Clinton County now in severe drought according to the drought monitor. So this is an abnormally dry, this is a time of year that doesn't get much precipitation anyway on average. And here we are at that time of the year getting very little precipitation, enough to qualify for severe drought. A little bit about the tropics then. I suspect if you're a weenie, you've looked at the weather. Gamma made landfall on, I guess it was near Cozumel over the weekend and has now come back over water. Delta on its heels. Both of these are tropical storms. Gamma is in an area of very weak steering currents right now and is projected to sort of meander slowly off to the southwest, come back over, I think I had Cozumel on the wrong side of the Yucatan. No. I don't know my Yucatan geography very well. I'll be the first to admit. Gamma meanders southwestward, interacts with land, weakens, and more or less 4 days from now isn't all that far from where it is this morning as a tropical depression. The bigger concern is Delta. This is just the second time, I suspect many of you know, that we've gone to the Greek alphabet. It's only the second time Delta's ever been used. It was used in 2005 when, I think it was November 15th of 2005 when Delta was named. So 6 weeks earlier than the previous time it was used, we get the 25th named storm. Delta is the bigger concern. Forecast to move almost due northwestward and get into the Gulf, where it becomes a hurricane on Wednesday. The tracks, let me back this up. If you look at the European ensemble tracks for Delta, here it comes into the Gulf. There's fairly good agreement that Delta will be somewhere in the Gulf. This is a Thursday morning. Actually, that's fairly good packing of the location, 72 hours out. Or actually, that's about 84 hours out. The current NHC track brings it inland somewhere on the Mississippi River Delta, round about Friday afternoon or evening. So you have to wonder whether Delta comes into the Delta around dawn. Sorry, I just had to say that. Some of you will understand what I just said, and some of you won't. But the bottom line is the expectation is that whatever's left of Delta is somewhere in the deep south on Friday night, Saturday morning. Beyond that, there's, that's where things get, there's still some uncertainty, of course, 5 days out as to landfall, but Louisiana seems to be kind of the target right now. I think this is the 6th time this year that Louisiana has been in a cone. So it's been a place of great congregation of these storms. Here's that same wind particle chart. I want to go up to 250 millibars and project forward to Wednesday. This is valid Wednesday morning. And you're up at 250 millibars. The reason I want to show this is much of the Gulf at this time is in the blue and the green colors at 250 millibars, which is a relatively light wind at that altitude. Light winds at 250 millibars mean relatively low shear. So the expectation is that Delta will be coming into a relatively low shear environment, which leaves a lot of room for intensification. And so the Hurricane Center is concerned about some rapid intensification of this storm once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, as for the possibilities of the storm coming far enough north to bring some precipitation here, let's take a look. I'll walk you through with the GFS 4-panel chart from the E-wall. So this is later today. Surface chart shows high pressure over the Ohio Valley settling into Pennsylvania for tonight. This would suggest clear skies, light winds. The next weakening front, we saw this on the National Weather Service forecast maps early, a weakening front associated with this vorticity max comes into Pennsylvania tomorrow. You really lose the identity of the trough, and it's this trailing low associated with this vorticity over the northern lakes eventually drags, notice the packed thickness lines here on the surface chart, indicative of a front. Something gets dragged through here in this trough right here late in the day Wednesday. So we get a cold frontal passage later in the day Wednesday, but it's very dry. If you look at the relative humidity panel, I mean, you can barely get the relative humidity above 70% in northern Pennsylvania before the air dries out again on Thursday. And then we really get into a much drier air mass. So I do not think, maybe we get a sprinkle here late in the day Wednesday. Otherwise, high pressure builds in. And then this sets us up for the synoptic pattern as Delta comes into the United States. So if you believe the GFS, and let's assume that it's close to being correct, Delta is just offshore of Louisiana on Friday morning. The flow across the northern United States at this time is pretty zonal. And so this is not the kind of pattern that would capture Delta and pull it northward. Instead, it's more of a pattern that would allow Delta to get pulled into a westerly flow and more or less stay to our south. And I think that's what the GFS is doing here. If you look at it, it takes the moisture from Delta and it tickles the Mason-Dixon line, but for the most part, it's a swing and a miss in Pennsylvania. If you look at the European model, here's Friday afternoon, very much a zonal flow at 500 millibars across the northern U.S. And the moisture from Delta, very similar to the GFS, tickles the Mason-Dixon line, some heavy rain in Virginia maybe Philadelphia gets a brief period of moderate rain, if you believe the European. Otherwise, the weekend high pressure builds in, and we have a mainly sunny, we could end up with a mainly sunny Saturday and Sunday here if Delta stays to our south. The ensemble members, if you look at the GFS ensemble, let's go ahead and do that for University Park. Of the 30, there are now 31 members here. There's the operational run. For those of you who missed the news last week, the GEFS added 10 additional ensemble members, so you're now up to 31 members. You have the high resolution run and then 30 perturbed runs. Of those 30 perturbed runs, 6 of them actually have a substantial rain here. By substantial, I mean an inch or more of rain here from the remnants of Delta. So it's more or less a 20% chance here in State College, based on the ensembles, of a significant rain here. The European ensembles, I looked, but I won't show it, give us also, I believe I counted, it was 9 out of the 51 ensemble members gave us more than half an inch in State College. So it's a low probability solution. It's not a zero probability solution, but I just think that the environment, the synoptic environment into which this tropical moisture is coming, favors a solution that keeps the bulk of any heavy precipitation to the south of Pennsylvania for the most part, and most likely to the south of State College. That's my take. So if I had to put together a weather forecast for State College, I would make it look like something like that. I hope you're looking now back at my PowerPoint slides. Partly sunny today. Some of these leftover clouds will break with time, get into the low 60s. Mainly clear tonight. Low 40s is just a smidge below Climo for this time of year. Lots of sunshine tomorrow. And I think Wednesday's probably mostly sunny as well. Maybe some afternoon clouds as that front approaches. But we warm up on Wednesday. Then we cool down on Thursday and Friday with lots of sunshine. And then I think Saturday and Sunday, the odds favor more dryness with at least some sunshine. Maybe you get some high altitude cirrostratus from the outskirts of the remnants of Delta. But I would vote for a nice weekend here. I already have plans to go biking on Saturday with some friends. So I would like to just finish today, if you don't mind. I do have a couple minutes left. Go back to my my browser. The tropics are currently in the La Nina state. This is an animation of the last. Actually, this goes back to. That only goes through May. Naturally, this is old. Let me see if we can get this updated. El Nino, we want sea surface temperature. Let's go with a 6-month anomaly animation. Can we get 6 months here? No, this is not updated. Let me just try again. So sea surface temperature. We want anomalies. Okay, so we'll have to rely on tropical tidbits. So here we are, current sea surface temperature anomalies. I'd like you to focus on the Pacific, specifically near the equator. You see all the blue. Those are negative anomalies. We are in a La Nina right now, with temperatures in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean sufficiently below average to warrant the La Nina designation. Most of the model predictions of the state of the tropical Pacific, this rather complicated diagram summarizes sea surface temperature forecasts in one of the key regions of the tropical Pacific that is used to gauge whether we are in an El Nino or a La Nina. the base or normal state is 0 here. Anything below the black horizontal line, anything minus 0.5 or less, means that the model is forecasting us to be in a La Nina. And the bulk of the model predictions keep us in a La Nina state right through the winter. I bring this up because there are some statistical correlations between being in a La Nina and the winter in the United States. This handy dandy website allows us to pick La Nina. We'll keep it at temperature, and then we'll pick the period December through February and plot the risk of extreme events. What you are looking at is a compilation of temperature anomalies during the December, January, February period in the lower 48 states during previous years when a La Nina was in progress. Notice that much of the South tends to have a relatively mild winter during a La Nina, where portions of the northern states tend to have a relatively cold winter during a La Nina. If we switch over to precipitation, we see that many of those same states in the South that tended to have a warm winter during a La Nina also tend to have a dry winter during a La Nina. Whereas across the north, there is a tendency to have a wet winter during a La Nina, the greens. I show you this because I now want to go back to my PowerPoint, and I want to show you the current Climate Prediction Center forecasts for this coming winter. Let's do temperature first. On the left is what we just saw from that website, the tendencies during a La Nina winter in the United States, lower 48. On the right is the Climate Prediction Center current outlook for the winter. There are similarities here. Notice that the Climate Prediction Center is currently calling for they are leaning towards a warmer than average winter in the Deep South, in the same area that the La Nina tendencies show there to be a warmer than average winter. And you can see a small portion of the northern United States, they are leaning toward a colder than average winter, not coincidentally, in the same kind of place that the La Nina tendencies suggest. A wise former head of the Climate Prediction Center once told us at a Chi Epsilon Pi banquet that the forecasters at the Climate Prediction Center lean very heavily on the El Nino and La Nina plus global warming to make their forecasts. And so you can imagine that this forecast on the right-hand side here, which is the current winter forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, is a blend of the La Nina forecast with a little bit of global warming sprinkled in. And then I'll close by comparing the La Nina tendency forecast on your left with the current Climate Prediction Center winter forecast on your right. Notice that they are similar. They are eerily similar. The Climate Prediction Center is using the La Nina pattern to make its winter precipitation forecast. It's not a one-to-one correspondence, but it's pretty doggone close. And so that is your forecast right through the winter. And I know that I am currently at 30 minutes. So Salix, it is all yours. If there are any questions, I would be happy to entertain comments and questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Nese. And like he had just said, if you have any questions for him, you can put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'll just leave that open for a couple more minutes, and then we can end the meeting if no one has any questions or comments.
So Bill Syret is hoping for lots of snow. I am sorry, Bill. I am not. I am so over snow. You're welcome, Marissa. Bill and I are neighbors in Boalsburg. But now Bill has a tremendous view of Tussey from his deck. Sorry, Bill, I'm giving away your location.
All right, well, it looks to me like no one has any questions, more so just comments. So if that's the case, then we can go ahead and end the weather briefing for this week. Please join us next week. It's the same time and the same Zoom link, and our speaker will be Dan DePodwin from AccuWeather.
Thanks, Alex.